And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Any of these greetings will apply to you depending on what time of day you are listening to this RBLR Sports podcast, specifically the Rowdies section of the podcast. I am your host, Leo Santos. I'm always joined by my amazing co-host, James. James, how you doing, man?
Well, as I said a little bit ago, I still have some sleep recovery to do after this past weekend. If anybody was unaware, I went to see the U.S. national team take on Panama in Orlando. So we were up late because the game went a little late. And then obviously, everybody wanted to have a celebration afterwards because we pretty much have booked our ticket to the next phase. I'm not going to go any from that until the game tonight because we are recording on Wednesday. So I will hold it back till there. Leo, how are you doing after this weekend?
I'm doing great, man. I went to Atlanta, Georgia this past weekend with my girlfriend and her family. I got to experience the world of Coke. Something very unique. I highly recommend people to go there. It might sound like something that might not be appealing to people, even for non-Coke lovers, but if you go, it's a really unique experience. But overall, the weather was great, man. I really enjoyed Atlanta this past weekend. But with all that being said, James, we got a couple of Rowdies games to cover and also a preview as well.
We do. Yes, there was a lot for us in our personal lives, but don't forget what we're actually here for. We are here to talk about the Tampa Bay Rowdies.
Exactly. Yeah. So as we were alluding to, the Rowdies had two games this past week. They had one midweek game away to Atlanta United 2. And one home game this past Saturday against Hartford Athletic. And on Wednesday, we did beat Atlanta United 2 by a scoreline of 3-0. However, on Saturday, we drew against Hartford Athletic by a scoreline of 1-1. Now, in regards to predictions, James did get the 3-0 win by the Rowdies against Atlanta United correct. So he gets all 3 points for that game. And I guessed a draw against Hartford Athletic. I didn't guess the correct scoreline. I predicted 2-2. So I do get a point for guessing the correct outcome. So James, you and I, we've been, pretty spot on with our predictions so far. I'm hoping we could keep it up. Listeners, don't forget to follow RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We're at RBLR Sports, pretty simple. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast on all major podcast platforms as well. We really do appreciate that. Now that we got all that out the way, James, let's get to the part where everyone wants to talk about. James, I want you to go ahead and briefly review that game, that midweek game away against Atlanta United 2.
Absolutely. So we will start there. It was the first game since our last episode. So we will jump in with the starting 11 like we usually do. It was CJ Cochran in net, Jordan Scarlett, Connor Antley, Aaron Guillen at the back, something we've become a little used to already. Sebastian Dalgard, Lewis Hilton, Jan Ekra, Leo Fernandez were the midfielders. And up top were Sebastian Guenzati, Steven Dos Santos, and Jake LaCava. And I got to say, this was one of the more dominant games that we are likely to see this season. Noted that Atlanta United really didn't sit back and just defend the whole game like we, might expect for what was really just a bunch of teenagers and then 20-somethings, I think, for the whole game. But the Rowdies were kind of feeling themselves. There was a point in the game when the commentator noted for everyone watching that he was witnessing what he called a backheel party. So I thought that was something that was pretty cool. A good way to put it for everyone who either missed the game or didn't remember that one line, because I thought that it was pretty good.
Yeah, definitely that backheel party, like you just said, it was exactly a party. It was definitely, trending on social media in regards to Rowdy's feed on Twitter and Instagram. It's something that, I really liked to see from there. They were feeling themselves, as you said, James. They were having a good time. And one thing we should also know about that game was that Lawrence White, he was listed unavailable as a precautionary, but Timmy Mel finally made the 18. James, do you want to review some stats about that game?
Yeah, so like many games and possibly one more that we are going to talk about today, I would say that this was a game of missed chances, even though we won 3-0. And I understand your skepticism on hearing that take, but just go along with me for a second here on these statistics that Leo just mentioned. 25-6 in shots in favor of the Rowdies. So that's a pretty big number. 6-1 in big chances in favor of the Rowdies, obviously another big number. And this one is kind of important for what I'm getting at here. 4-1 big chances missed, again, in favor of the Rowdies. So, yeah, it's just a theme that I think we are going to unfortunately have to return to, but that is a good little look at what the Rowdies, the way that things kind of played out for them.
Yeah, well, what a good sense of foreshadowing from you, James, because that will be a overall theme that we'll discuss in this episode. But moving on to the Hartford Athletic game, similar starting lineup, obviously same back line in regards to Cochran in the back of the goal. We had Scarlett, Antley again, guiding that back three. And we had a little change in the midfield. We had Sebastian Dalgard still staying on his right wing back role, Leo on the left side. However, in the midfield, we've seen Jan Ekra come out and Etu come in and replace him to play alongside the middle with Lewis Hilton. And up top, we've seen the same front three with Seba, Duba, and Lakava. James, you have here one thing to mention is that Collins mentioned in the pregame that Aubergun's runs in behind was going to be, something that the Rowdies need to pay attention to, or something, to keep an eye on, because James, you and I know this is an international player, and, if you play for your international team, then you're, at least the best 11 players from that nation. So whenever you have someone who's an international player, then you always have to keep an eye on them. And, we've seen early how, Aubergun's runs were pretty, I guess, causing trouble for that back line. However, the Rowdies, they eventually got the pressing game back, and we've seen a goal come from that from Jake Lakava, who's just playing on fire. So early in the season, you have to see your newest signing just be in full form at this point of the season. It's so early. And but that's basically how it's that, just a game of two teams pressing, which team can really press the other team more, and also which team can be more crucial in the final third. And James, as you already said, the Rowdies were not too crucial in the final third. So that will take us to our questions, James. So I want to ask you, what would it take for the Rowdies to start converting more of their chances?
Yeah, so this is a big problem in especially the game against Hartford. We, like I said, we won the game away to Atlanta 3-0. That's a pretty good line, but when you draw 1-1 at home, you kind of think, well, what's going on there? And, the game was pretty close if you look at the statistics for each half. The Rowdies did have more passes, but, fair enough. Outside of that, when you look at it in the second half, the Rowdies did in the last 10 minutes, and I had two notes of this, in fact. There were, set piece after set piece after set piece for the last 10 to 15 minutes. And I think that we were missing so many that we ultimately lost ourselves points. So what do we do to fix that? Like I said, I'm not entirely sure. I think that for one thing, you could do some training sessions just on finishing. Obviously, that would be, my first thought as someone who hasn't taken part in any professional level soccer. But, outside of just doing shooting drills, what else can you say? Probably there needs to be, one or two switches on in terms of confidence. So if I can relate this to a player that I saw on Sunday for the U.S. men's national team, Christian Pulisic has had a lot of chances to score over the last couple of games up until Sunday. And unfortunately, he was getting a bit of a reputation for missing those recently, and especially also at Chelsea. Confidence is a very important thing when you're actually trying to put the ball into the back of the net. So he goes into the game against Panama and he scores one, and you can see like his demeanor is totally different. It is not the same thing. He doesn't feel the same way. You can just tell in his body language. And then he goes out and he scores another one, and he scores him. He leaves the game with a hat trick. And, is the most important player. We need some of these guys on the Rowdies to step up and kind of do a similar thing here. They obviously had the talent. They were getting themselves into the positions to create these big chances that we are getting on the statistics sheet. Turn it into the back of the net once, and maybe the contract to actually put it in once or twice or three times.
James, that's a really great point you made. We talk about how, you give the example of Christian Pulisic, how scoring that goal gave him confidence. I think the reason why we're seeing Jake Lakava shine more than Munzade and Duba, at least at this early point in the season, is because, he's getting on the end of goals. He's someone that's always chasing to get inside, good positions within that 18-yard box. So you can see the difference in their plays. I mean, even the pressing game, he looks the most lively out of that front three. So I do agree that, scoring goals and also increasing your confidence will help with converting chances. And as right now, we look at Jacob Cava, he's just doing everything I'm pretty sure Neil wants him to, but also every Rowdies fans and every spectator would like to see a player like him do. And James, you mentioned how you didn't play the game professionally, neither did I, but you and I played the sport before, whether it's travel club or whatever. But when we knew we had strikers on our team, and if they were missing chances, we seen that the coach would literally put them to put finishing drills. So it sounds simple, but I guess fundamental finishing drills could come a long way this season. But yeah, James, you said how Neil thought there could have been better execution. Couldn't be down to lack of fitness, even though because of the midway game against Atlanta too. So if those weren't the excuses, then what is the excuse? So that's something to keep in mind for Rowdies fans moving forward. James, do you want to add anything else in regards to converting chances?
I think that we have covered most of the things. I've got to, just for me, I've got to emphasize what I think most of it comes down to is confidence, because Sebastian Guenzati obviously has done it at this level. We know that he's capable of it. And again, we keep getting ourselves into these positions. But when we look at chances from that one game that I mentioned, it was 6-1 big chances created by the Rowdies, 4-1 big chances missed by the Rowdies. So you got to see that there is obviously a disconnect there if we are putting ourselves in the positions and we're just missing them.
Yeah, I want to move on to the next point, which is, Hartford Athletic is arguably, James, the toughest team we faced so far this season, right? However, we only managed to get a draw against them. And we do know there are tougher opponents coming up in the season. Do you think we should be worried facing against tougher opponents? Because we face someone like Hartford Athletic, and there's more Hartford Athletics in this league, obviously, in our conference as well. And we only managed to draw. Is it because it's due to early form where you're still trying to shake off the rust, or should we be worried about facing stronger opponents?
Personally, I would say that early form excuse maybe I don't think that is applicable here. I think that we're a couple games in, and there obviously was a preseason doesn't mean entirely everything, especially when how much experimentation was going on during our preseason in particular. But when you look at the way that we're playing, I don't think that they're, really too far behind in terms of their peak fitness and what they want to achieve. They're going to get there. They're not there yet, but they're not far off is my point. So if it's not that, then what else could it be? I would imagine that it's got to do with, getting used. A lot of new players, for one thing. A lot of new guys are moving into positions that weren't there previously. Not too many again, but you still have to compensate for that. And then with that, I would say that we are a little bit worried, me personally. I don't know about you, Leo, but I am a little bit worried the way that the Rowdies handled being pressed, the way that the Rowdies usually would go and press another team. So this was something that I brought up with Neil Collins in the post game after the game versus Hartford. And, I said it seemed a pretty big difference between the first half and the second half. Between the way that the Rowdies were able to play out of Hartford's press. And Neil was able to quibble with me and say that he thought it was the first 15 minutes. Fair enough. I probably should have checked my timestamps here. My notes have it between the 20th and the 30th minute that I started to notice a difference. He did get me there. But overall, I will still say that the Rowdies were slow to get into the place where they could actually play out of that press. Like I said, Hartford are a good team. They are not the best team. And they are certainly not the best team at pressing, even, if you remove the Rowdies from the equation. So I think that the Rowdies are going to have a lot more teams try and do that to them. And they're going to have to be able to start the game a little bit more quickly, of course. And then once they have done that, hopefully they will be able to play out of the press more. But I think that is a concern for us moving forward.
Yeah, and I think you alluded to it in your answer where it was a problem at first, but then you seen the back line, who I'll get into more a little bit shortly. But you said how they slowly adapted to the way Hartford pressed against them, and I think one thing that's going to be key for this Rowdies team moving forward in regards to the defensive side of the game is I guess adapting to the press early in the game, but also being patient. You don't want to think, from the first 5 minutes when teams pressing, you already know what to do. It's going to take time to build up in the game. And I think what you can do during that time in which you try to adapt or catch up to speed in regards to discovering the opposition's pressing games, if they do play that way, try to find ways to keep it simple until the defensive unit or Neil or someone on the coaching sidelines advises you, what to do next and stuff like that. So I think for right now, in regards to this early in the season, is to be patient. So and in that time where you're being patient, not concede a goal. But moving forward in regards to the defensive game, James, this is now 3 games with Guillen, Antley, and Scarlett in the back 3, and now they've only conceded 1 goal. So James, we didn't even need Castellanos in the first place, right? You could just go back to Nashville, cut that loan short. We're fine with that back 3 we have now.
Yeah, I did like the signing of Robert Castellanos. He's obviously a very good player at this level, and I think that he would be a good addition to the team. But as you said, he's not available. We have to play with what we've got, and what we've got is still pretty damn good. I mean, Connor Antley, again, this is something that I think I've said in the past on this podcast. He was originally signed to be a center back. And because Forrest Lasso, who was obviously our starter last year, held down that position so well and, had such a vice grip on that starting position, then Connor Antley had to kind of find his way into other positions on the field. And ultimately, he did very well when he was playing as right wing back, so much so that he actually kept Sebastian Dalgard for games. When you lose Forrest Lasso and you put Connor Antley back, you see just how good he is at that position too. And one thing that you have to note about Connor Antley is obviously when he played as a right wing back, he had a lot more responsibility to actually move the ball forward up the field and, eat some space with the ball, to carry it forward and create some chances. He was very good at that. As a center back, you obviously aren't going to be running up the wing trying to get in crosses and so on and so forth. But one thing you can do as a center back is when you have the space, carry the ball forward at least a little bit. Then when a player comes to you, they are going to open up some space by virtue of their running towards you to shut you down, and you can play the ball into the space that they just vacated. So that's another good thing that Connor Antley brings to the back line when he's able to be there. I think there are 1 or 2 concerns. Obviously, height is a thing, and I do want to mention something else that I brought up with Neil Collins in the post game before I turn it over to you, because I've been talking a while here. But very quickly, I want to note that Jordan Scarlett and Connor Antley did bump into each other at least twice. I believe it was 3 times in the first half against Hartford when they were going up for the same header. In one instance, in fact, they went up for the same header, bumped into each other, and both missed the ball. And then Prince Sadie, the Hartford winger, was in on net. Now, we were very lucky in that instance that he was offside because he actually had a clear shot at the goal. But they did sort that out in the second half. I don't think I saw it again. Maybe there needs to be some communication. Maybe there needs to be someone who is the designated header for, this spot or that spot, whatever it might be. But yeah, that is one more thing that we need to work on is height.
That's 2 key points. I mean, we talk about how great Connor Antley is in regards to adapting, whether it's a center back or right wing back role. But I thought he's been doing, pretty good as that main center back, that anchor position in the back 3. And James, you're not the only one that says that we need more communication. Our producer Yuri, whenever we see him live or we get on the meetings before we record a podcast, he's always talking about where's the communication in the back line. And I think a perfect example of why we believe there's a lack of communication is, like you said, James, 2 defenders going up for the same ball. Like, you do not see that often. And the fact that they're missing if it's 2 Rowdies defenders going up for the same ball and there's 1 opposition player, in this example is going to be Hartford Athletic, and you still win the challenge, that's definitely a concern to have. But overall, I think they have been doing pretty well. And like you said, James, we work with what we got, and what we got, I really do like what we got, And but yeah, so I know we're talking about the defense right now, and James, we've seen plenty of times last season where the opposing team scores the first goal. Not only did they score the first goal, they scored very early, and Hartford scored early this game. Luckily, we recovered. We recovered with that Jake LaCava press and that goal deflecting off of him. But like I said, we've seen many times last season where we trail early, and then we have to be that desperate team to go get the goal, which can also make us very vulnerable defensively. Do you think this should be, besides converting chances, should this also be a priority for Neo on how not to concede a goal against a team that loves to press? Because Hartford definitely will be the last team to press.
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah, you can look at the way that Hartford went about it, and that's something that you can recreate. as an opposing team. So there are definitely going to be teams who, watch this game and they take some notes and they try to build their own press around that. I think that the Rowdies, definitely something that we mentioned last year, a fair amount of times need to start the game a little bit more quickly because we get caught out, unfortunately, frequently early on. And I think we even saw that in the final against Orange County. So if you can catch the Rowdies very early on the press, that's something that some teams are going to take notice of. And I think that the Rowdies either need to, have some of those old smelling salts before the game, something to get the adrenaline flowing in the proper way, or they need to make themselves more press resistant. And that gets very technical for just a podcast where I can't make any drawings or anything. Not that I am the expert or anything, but there are ways that, Manchester City is a very good example. They make themselves press resistant by only going forward in certain ways and then putting their players who don't have the ball in certain areas so that if the other team does win the ball, then they can immediately shut down any passing lanes, cut off any runs, all that kind of stuff, and they still contain the other team even when they have the ball. That seems to be something for me that the Rowdies could work on, in addition to, like I said, getting up earlier, getting these games going faster.
Definitely. Yeah, I think this should be at least number 2 on Neil's list. If he remembers that summer last season where we conceded early and we lost games, we'd be lucky to even get, a result, at least 1 point from those games where we did concede early. But I do think it should be number 2. Number 1, you said already, it should be, converting these chances to number 2. It's very early in the season. Teams are going to want to get points early, and they might look at any kind of blueprint to get points against the Rowdies, who are, one of the biggest teams, if not the biggest team in USL. And they see how Hartford got early go by pressing, why not? It's just going to encourage our teams to have a crack at it as well. But I feel like we're talking too much about Hartford and not really the Atlanta United 2 game. So let's just bring them in just for this one question. But we had 2 teams who played against us. And one thing I want to mention about Atlanta United is that they weren't just pressing back, James. Although there were a bunch of kids and 20-something-year-olds, like you said, they were not just sitting back. They played their game as well. I think, due to the lack of inexperience and also due to how great the Rowdies are, it just happened to be that the Rowdies, won 3-0, even if the away team did not just sit back. However, you can say the same for Hartford Athletic. They were a team that also didn't just sit back. But, James, we played against 2 teams that played their game and didn't sit back. However, there were 2 different results. Why do you think that is? Is it just simply because Rowdies is way better than Atlanta United 2?
Well, I would say that with Atlanta United not sitting back, it is a lot harder for these guys from, Atlanta's academy to come and play this against what are a bunch of professional guys, because, there were 16, 17, 18. I am all for all of those guys getting, all the minutes that they are going to get. I think that was a really great opportunity for people my age when I was coming through at that time. Probably wouldn't have been on that team, but I would have been looking over at them. But I think that, the Atlanta United needed to, and they were not capable of really of putting themselves in the positions to prevent the Rowdies from breaking through when they had already pushed so far forward. So, a lot of positional play is something that you learn, when you get older and get into better teams. Hopefully you can learn that as a young player, but mostly I think a lot of those guys are making sure that they're getting touches, getting reps, and getting all that kind of stuff, and trying to learn how to use their body against generally much bigger players. So the positional play is something that they were definitely lacking for Atlanta United.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with everything you said, both about, for Atlanta United and, in regards to, the difference in the results between those 2 games. Like you said, it might be easy enough to just say that the Riders were a better team, but you got to remember these are young kids as well, trying to still learn the game, trying to use that Atlanta United 2 opportunity to hopefully play for Atlanta United or, take their professional careers to the next level as well. But I do think it just comes down to simply Rowdies. For me, Rowdies is just a far better team than Atlanta United 2 than compared to Hartford Athletic, who might give them a tougher challenge as we've seen. But James, let's talk about more as the Rowdies as a whole. How do you think of the way they play with that pressing style? And do you believe that there's going to be a new look Rowdies this season? And what I mean by this is because we've seen last season where we still see it sometimes early on this season, but we've seen last season where one, it's a different formation. We play a 3-5-2. This season we're going to 3-4-3. Two new players coming in, players couldn't be signed with the team for several reasons. And three, we've seen the kind of play that Neil had with this team was switching the ball constantly side to side, putting in crosses in the box, not really too much pressing, being more lenient with your defensive side of the game. However, this season, at least to me, we're seeing more of a pressing game, more of a counter-attacking game, more of, like that backheel party linking up, in the middle of the field inside the box. James, what do you make of the Rowdies so far? And are we going to see a new look Rowdies this season?
Well, I think the pressing game was a good part of the Rowdies last year when we didn't have the ball, but definitely I think that it has kind of hit a new height. And one of the best examples of that is the goal that we scored against Hartford. So that goal was entirely scored by pressing. And if you look at the way that it broke down, I will go through it very quickly here, but the Rowdies press comes from the right back, and we move on to the left back for Hartford, who had the ball, or I suppose then it would have been the left center back. But either way, we apply pressure to him, and he plays the ball back to the goalkeeper in a very quick manner. He was put under pressure so fast that he had to turn and play it super fast himself. Hartford's goalkeeper can't really control it, and then he tries to play it very quickly. And when he does so, the ball ultimately is going to, the actual center back in the middle, and he doesn't get it under control. It bounces off of Jake Lakava's leg instead, and it goes right up over, and it goes into the net. That is the best pressing goal that I am sure any pressing coach will tell you about. But one thing we see from the Rowdies this year that is different is the guy who scored that goal, Jake Lakava. Jake Lakava is just such a young player and so energetic that he brings a new dimension to our ability to press. So obviously Steven Dos Santos is a larger guy. He's not, slow or lumbering or anything like that. He's no Frankenstein's monster out there by any means, but he isn't as fast or as strong in the press as Jake Lakava is. And you have him doing what he can do to apply pressure. You have Sebastian Guenzati running back and forth as much as he can, and he still covers a lot of ground. Jake Lakava, though, can run sideline to sideline like 5 times in a row at top speed and then be like, okay, well, I'm still ready to have a jog. I'm still ready. Or do we have the ball back yet? I'm ready to run if you want me to. So I think that he adds a certain extra dimension to our ability to press, and those pressing triggers are kind of based on when he is available to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with everything you just said. I like the point you made, how we definitely took our pressing style to the next level, should I say, because, we look at times last season where it was just Duba pressing or just Guenzati pressing. Now you see, the Rowdies pressing in numbers, makes opposition very nervous, as we've seen with that goal Jake Lakava got against Hartford Athletic. But I agree with what you said. And James, I don't know if you noticed this, but there were times last season, not a lot, but there were some times where we would drop points and Neil, will make changes to his lineup. Do you expect, we'll get more into the Oakland Roots preview in a little bit here, but do you expect any changes at all coming either from the Oakland Roots game or sometime next week?
I don't expect too many coming up for specifically the Oakland Roots game. And as you said, we will get into that and when we do the actual preview part. But I think that Oakland Roots kind of lends themselves to being overwhelmed in the press. If we find that other teams are playing a little bit differently, then hopefully we will be able to switch up our style. Hopefully we'll be able to try some different players in different positions. Jake Arman has not had a start yet. And as everybody who was listening from before the season knows, I was most high on Jake Arman as opposed to Jake Lakava. And so far I have eaten what little bit of crow there is from, one guy starting over the other, but Jake Lakava has 3 goals to his name. And I mean, what better start can you ask for? There are all sorts of options that we can, try to do to target different players. And I think that we'll be able to see, a good amount of creativity with this lineup.
Yeah, that's one thing for sure. We have not been short of creativity so far this season. Although we might not be converting our chances, but the fact that we make those chances has definitely been down to the creativity within that front three, and also everyone a part of that starting 11 and those subs coming in. But James, it's time for our man of the match. If you're follow RBLR Sports on Twitter, then you will have already seen our man of the matches for against Atlanta United 2 and Hartford Athletic. However, if you haven't followed us yet, I don't know what you're doing, still waiting around. Do that right now, and we'll tell you our man of the match players picks right now. For me, James, for Atlanta United 2, it was Sebastian Dalgard for me. I thought he was exceptional in that game, and that goal of his was just amazing. He's someone that I did not expect to start this season. However, he has proven me wrong, and I'm more than happy that he's proven me wrong. He's just performing day in and a game in and game out, week in and week out, and I'm just really impressed with his game. And for my Hartford game, I think there's only one candidate there, Jake LaCava. I know, James, you have someone else, as you always tend to do with these man of the matches. But Jake LaCava, for me, was the man of the match for Hartford Athletic because, he's someone that we talked about him already. His pressing game was amazing. He's someone that's full of confidence right now. He's enjoying his game right now. And those are my two picks. I'll shut up now. James, who is your man of the match for both games?
Well, who is my man of the match for both games? It's pretty simple. It's the same person. It is Leo Fernandez. So for the Atlanta United game, you took the one wing back on the right side, and I took the other wing back on the left side because I think they were doing, pretty much the same thing all day, except, of course, for you, Sebastian Dalgard did get that belter of a goal. Should be noted at this point, Leo Fernandez did get an assist there. In the second game, I think that Leo Fernandez also just had a very strong presence on the left wing back spot, and I think that he was, part of a lot of the creativity that the Rowdies experienced. And as always, he brought the defense necessary to prevent any big chances from coming down his side. So for a big game on both days, I just said, it's too easy for me at this point. I'm going to choose Leo Fernandez.
I cannot disagree with you on that one. I also like Leo Fernandez. I think someone's been a strong candidate. So I wish I could disagree with you like I did last time out. But James, you get a pass this time. With that being said,
we'll have to practice our disagreements then.
Exactly. Yeah, but we can't make it sound too scripted, but we'll practice on that for sure. Moving on to our hot take segment. James, I'll say mine quickly, then you could go on to yours, and then you can lead us to our standings update as well. But so mine this week is going to be that Jake LaCava would not last a full season at the Rowdies. Now, it would not come down to injury. It will come down to the matter of fact that I do believe if Jake LaCava keeps on scoring goals, keep on assisting, playing at his top game for the Rowdies in the USL, I do believe the New York Red Bulls will recall him back from loan because, James, you and I, I'm pretty sure you and I both know that the Red Bulls in the MLS, they have not been shy of giving young players chances. We've seen players like Tyler Adams, Caden Clark make their ways toward Europe, giving them opportunities to shine on the big stage, and they perform really, really well. You look at Tyler Adams as an international player. Caden Clark, he went to RB Leipzig. He's back on Red Bulls on loan, but the fact that he made a jump to Europe shows how good he is. I believe Brandon Aronson as well started out with the Red Bulls as well, and look at him. He's a great international player now. He's playing with RB Salzburg over there in Austria. So I feel like, Jake LaCava for me might be that next player to take that jump with the Rowdies and hopefully, with the Red Bulls, and then hopefully make a jump to Europe, which you would love to see from Jake LaCava. You could tell he's a really talented young player, someone who really enjoys the game. And to me, I just feel like if he continues at this rate so early in the season, who knows how many goals and assists he's going to have come June or July. And with that being said, I don't think he'll last a full season at the Rowdies.
One quick point there, just that Brendan Aronson was with the Philadelphia Union, but I understand why but I understand why you would say he was with the Red Bulls, because he is very good at playing the pressing game that every Red Bull team loves to play. And who else does? Of course, Jake LaCava. So I understand why you would make that comparison. And unfortunately, I understand why you would make that hot take yourself. But my hot take is pretty quick here. I will just say that, our missed chances, I do not think that they are just part of some, early season slump. I think that this is a pattern that we even noticed last season. So, we just got to work on that. We got to work on that. And, striker scoring is like a ketchup bottle. Sometimes it's going to come out a lot. Sometimes it's only going to be a little bit. But let's get to that part where it's all coming out.
Exactly. Yeah, man. We need to get to that part where just put the ball in the back of the net, like, come on, we should be winning these games by 4 or 5 goals already. But that's gonna be our hot takes for this episode. So James, if you will be willing enough, can you take us into our standings update?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go through this. After 4 games played, the Rowdies are second in the East. We are sitting on 8 points. Unfortunately, we are currently behind Louisville City, who have won 3 and drawn once. So they are obviously topping the East with that record and doing very well with a relatively new team and a relatively new lineup that they have out there. We want to make note of 2 things that are going on out in the West as well. Phoenix lost again, this time 3-2 at home to San Diego Loyal. So good enough for Landon Donovan's team out there. They stay 8th in the West, Phoenix that is. And our next opponent, Oakland Roots, sits in 12th place out of 13 teams in the West. So that is not obviously where a team wants to be. But I got to see a little bit of Oakland Roots, and I want to lead us through our preview here, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Leo. But the Rowdies do play Oakland Roots at 10 p.m. on Saturday night. It's in California, hence the late start, and that is unfortunate for everyone here, I'm sure, but I don't doubt that there will still be an audience for it. The Roots appear to be a team that is kind of putting themselves together right now, and they are still on that weird field that is bright green, and so I'm not entirely sure when that is going to be fixed in terms of their finding a new stadium, but
It looks
in the
terrible
meantime,
on the
we still get to
broadcast.
it looks so crazy, but I guess they are stuck at Laney Field, I think it is called. Oakland also have a game tonight. We are recording on Wednesday, so they play tonight away to New Mexico United. We should keep that in mind when we know that we have a game coming up against them Saturday. Hopefully that will impact their ability to play well when we go out there. Like I said, I watched a little bit of their last game against Monterey before I got out to the game in Orlando on Sunday. So I saw, only roughly the first half, and I only have that much to talk about here, but I think that it still gives us a relatively good blueprint on them. It seemed like a lot of these players were learning, their new roles, and they were learning their new roles on fly. I don't know when all of these guys signed for Oakland Roots over, the preseason, but it didn't seem as though they had a lot of continuity between last year's team and this team coming up. And there are definitely a lot of guys who are new to the team. That should be noted for sure. In particular, Juan Carlos Azocar, he seemed to be getting beat a lot as the left back. And I don't think that he is used to playing at left back. So if he continues to play there, I would only think that it's natural for us to target that spot again, because he did not have it locked down for sure. Matias Fasore is an Argentinian midfielder. He drops in between their center backs, and he tries to spread the ball around. But it seemed like there were a lot of options for him to do that, because players, like I said, were just learning their roles, learning where they were supposed to be. The wingers didn't offer too much for him to, as an outlet. And that it really didn't turn out too great for them. But that's what I saw for Oakland Roots in 30 to 40 minutes.
Yeah, James, from what I'm hearing, similar team to Indy 11. Now, Indy 11 might be a better team, but the reason why I say Indy 11 is because Indy 11, they bring a lot of new players. They even brought in a new head coach. And you can tell that their team's still trying to figure out, how they're going to gel, how they're going to play in their new coach's system. And also, we talk about how you said, their left back wasn't particularly the strongest position on the team. And we've seen when we play Indy 11 how we did like to attack through a certain side against them. So I feel like if I'm a Rowdies attacker, I'm licking my lips right now looking at this team, and I'm gonna want some goals in this game. And what a way to raise your confidence for this game as well. But before we get to our predictions, this will be something new. But I want to ask you, James, who do you want to see in the lineup? I feel like I know the answer to this, but I want to ask you, who do you want to see in this lineup?
Well, I do like what we've gone so far in terms of the goalkeeper and the starting back three. I think that those groups have done well. And I think our midfield has also done well for the most part. We see who is going to partner. Lewis Hilton has been a question, whether that was Jan Ekra or Junior Etu. Personally, I would like to see Lawrence Wyke, but that means that he has to be back fully fit. He did sub into the Hartford game, which I don't think noted previously, but it is good to note that he came back after being precautionarily absent against Atlanta United. So if he came back into the midfield, that would be good. And then the only other thing that I could possibly say for me is I would possibly like to see Jake Arman get the start at left wing back. And then up top, what I'm thinking is Leo Fernandez as the left winger. Maybe Sebastian Guenzati starts as the central, the striker role, the one that Steven Dos Santos usually plays, but Sebastian Guenzati has also proven himself capable of. And then on the right wing, I would like to see Jake LaCava, who obviously won't stay on the right wing because he loves being all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. You just put him on the right wing to throw off the other team. Then you see Jake LaCava just going everywhere on the field. But for me, for this game, I agree with you. I would like to see Jake Arman finally make his starting debut, make his first start, his first start for the team. Because I feel like he's, in preseason, from what I've heard, from what James, you and I have heard, he's had a really good, strong preseason. And we brought him in with a good, he had a good stats and good form with, with Charlotte Independence. And, he's someone that knows this league very well. However, another player that I really do want to see is someone who I was hoping would get the start at the beginning of the season, but, is not starting right now due to Sebastian Dahlgren performing out of this world currently. I do want to see Dayon Harris come in. I feel like he's still playing that super sub role for Neo, at least, this early point in the season. I do want to see Dayon Harris come in and see what he can offer from the first minute to, if he gets subbed off in the first minute to like the 60th minute, see what he could provide for you for an hour. He does have pace. He's not afraid to go at defenders. He could deliver. His crossing has some question marks on it. His finishing in the final third still has some question marks on it. But, I do want to see him get the chance to start the game on the right wing back side and see what he could offer. But with that being said, James, let's get to our predictions, man. You and I have been on fire with these, whether we guess the right score or we guess the right outcome. But you know what, James, I've been talking. So I'm going to let you have the first take at the prediction.
All right. Well, after seeing Oakland against Monterey Bay is a team that is just putting themselves together in their own right. So for them to go and get a 3-2 win away to Oakland, I'm going to say that we, the Tampa Bay Rowdies, better than Monterey, we are going to win 3-1.
3-1. I like that. I'm going to be very close to you. I'm going for a 3-0 win. I was very close to picking 4-0, but I feel like those missed chances are still stuck in my head. I'm pretty sure they're stuck in your head too, James. So I'm going to go with the 3-0 win for the Rowdies.
All right. Well, I mean, I think either way, Neil Collins would be happy, but it would probably be better for our team to concede as few as possible just for the sake of our boosting the confidence of the players on the field. So that will do it for our predictions. And if you have any predictions, obviously, please let us know on Twitter. But another thing that I want to mention for us, obviously, liking and subscribing is free to our podcast. But if you think that you need some new threads, you can support this podcast by heading over to shop.rblrsports.com and checking out all of the designs that our producer Eureka has been working on. He has got some great stuff on the website, and I think that everybody who checks it out will really like it. If you do want to go do that, please use the promo code COYR for 10% off on your order. Obviously, a discount makes everything better, not just good designs, but obviously a nice little discount to go along with them. Yeah. And Leo, before I move towards ending anything, there's some stuff for you to talk about. You have got something that you would like to tell everybody, if I'm not mistaken here.
Yeah, I do got something. That something is it's out now on YouTube. In case you haven't noticed or been aware on Twitter, I did an exclusive interview with Aaron Guillen from my YouTube channel. Specifically for my show called In the Loop with Leo. I interviewed Aaron Guillen. We talk about the mental health of professional athletes. We talk about his goals for the Rowdies this season and how important it is for athletes to check up on the mental side of the game as well as the physical side of the game. It's a really great interview. You get to know a little more about Aaron. He's an amazing guy both on and off the pitch. And I had a lot of fun doing the interview with Aaron. You should all go check it out. You'll enjoy it for sure. And also, we all know that the sport of soccer is it's the world's game. So with that being said, I just want to let everybody know that the World Cup will be taking place this year in November in Qatar. However, before we get to that point, we need to know who's playing who in regards to the group stage. And from there, we'll see, where the World Cup will go after that. However, in order to find out who's going to play in the group stage, we need to find the draw. So this Friday will be the World Cup draw. So make sure you check your social media throughout the day. Make sure you check your soccer news, your sports news throughout the day to see which nations get drawn into each group. Now, the U.S. and Mexico have not officially made it, but James, I think it's safe to say that they're most likely going to be qualified. Costa Rica will probably get that playoff spot to go to the World Cup. But so the World Cup draw is this Friday. Make sure to watch it. It's the biggest sport event, in my opinion. But that's all I gotta say. James, you want to say anything else before we get out of here?
I gotta say, good luck to Mexico. I think that obviously Mexico has a lot of good players on their team. They deserve to be at every World Cup. But the U.S. men's national team will be returning to another barring the biggest catastrophe in the history of this team. I think it would be even worse than the last one, but I can't imagine that anything so bad is going to happen tonight. The U.S. men's national team would have to lose tonight by a 6-goal margin, so that is probably not going to happen. Anyway, like Leo said, check it out on Friday. I know that I'm going to be glued to my phone. Sorry, everyone who is asking me to do stuff at work, but there is something very important that day.
All right, bro, you won't be the only one. I understand that too, man. But I don't think U.S. will face any kind of catastrophe. I think they'll be just fine. Even if they lose, they'll be just fine. But with all that being said, listeners, once again, thank you for supporting this podcast and listening to this podcast. Also, don't forget to follow RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We're at RBLR Sports. If you want to interact with James and I on Twitter, we'll be more than happy to. My Twitter handle is at @I'mLeoSantos_. James, what's your Twitter handle? Where can these people find you or talk to you?
Yeah, I am also on Twitter at RBLRJamesK. If you want to follow up on Leo's interview, please do so with his. If you want to yell and make complaints, please do so on Eureka's, not mine or his, and we will hand those over to our producer.
Definitely, yeah. And if you want to file those complaints to our producer or just RBLR Sports, use the hashtag #AskRBLR and we'll try to get to your complaint. However, if you have some good things to say about us, or just want to interact with us, you can use that same hashtag as well. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast. We do cover not only the Rowdies, we also cover the Bucks, the Lightning, and the Rays as well. So make sure if you're a huge Tampa sports fan, make sure you get your latest information on those sports teams as well. But don't forget to like and subscribe to us on Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, Apple and Google Podcasts, YouTube, and all other major podcast platforms. And with all that being said, James, I guess we could just say, come on, you Rowdies.
Ahead of our trip to California, come on, you Rowdies.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.